And Jack Whelan already winning the Open event this morning. First of the two finals he's made over this weekend. CLINT IANSON also in excellent form. And it's he that's won the lag and will get us underway in frame one. Well, it's a long match, so I guess it matters a little bit less, but not the start he was looking for, the immediate in-off. The on-site bookmaker had both of these players at 5-6 before the match, so not much to choose between them in the eyes of the bookie, and not much to choose between them in the eyes of most people around the venue. Jack Whelan, I guess if you were to pick a favourite, maybe the fact that he's reached both finals and did win the one this morning, so he's already won one trophy over the weekend. That perhaps takes a little bit of the pressure off, but at the same time, great opportunity for him to do a pretty remarkable double. You'd have got very long odds on the same player reaching both finals, given it's a 256-man field with some quality players in there. Jack Whelan's break in particular has been imperious over the course of the weekend. I've seen him several times on the stream table, and he seems to have had a not far off 100% success rate with making a ball off the break. That was certainly the difference in the Open final. Anyone that was watching earlier, his opponent Sean Chipperfield broke dry off his first three breaks. That was basically the difference between them. Of course, having a big break is only one part of it, and he's currently demonstrating. He's also pretty adept with the next stage of clearing the balls up. This is the kind of position that he's been tearing through at speed all weekend.
So good to see people joining us for this final. We are streaming on YouTube and Facebook. As always, please do support the stream by liking and sharing and putting it on your timeline, making sure people know. Really be interested to hear what your opinions on what the scores will be. Obviously a race to 8. I'm going to say Jack wins, and I'm going to say 8-5.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I mean, I think if you were to pick a favourite, you probably would have to go with Jack. I mean, Clint's done precious little wrong, but Jack has just been so dominant. I do think it made a pretty big difference winning that final earlier. There's a sort of different pressure. When we spoke to him after he'd got into the second final, he was saying the job's a long way from being done yet. You could see he really meant business. And I think he'd have been under some significant pressure if he hadn't won this morning, but that's helped the first half of the double. And ultimately that dry break from Clint has proved costly, as you well imagine it may do in this match. If either player struggles with their break, it's going to be a long afternoon for them.
And you mentioned the double, and just focusing on that. What kind of achievement would this be? Putting this into perspective, 256 players in this field over this weekend. To pull off the double, I mean, I can't think. I mean, people win world championships and that comes with its own pressures, but to get through two fields like this, I'm just not sure there's anything that's been achieved like this before.
No, well, I mean, it's a bit odd because it's kind of the same field twice, isn't it? But that's proving that, every match, there are going to be so many matches that are 50-50 and, one day one person wins. But I mean, the fact that he's won all of those 50-50 matches back to back, I mean, there's no better feeling, is there, any kind of sport or job or whatever it is you do. You just get into a groove sometimes and everything suddenly seems easy, and he's obviously found that groove this weekend. Although he's got a very level-headed attitude, he's clearly not taking any of this for granted, and he's definitely not seeing the job as being done. One thing about the break that I was commenting on earlier is how studied he is. He does exactly the same thing in terms of where he stands, where he puts the ball, where he puts his hand. And it's that kind of consistency that's leading to this kind of consistency in putting balls.
And look at the reds. Wow. Well, just a little nod to himself, almost just to say, I can't really see too many problems. Obviously, the cluster of yellows in the middle of the table may cause a problem transitioning from one end of the table to the other, but I mean, one ball on the side cushion, one on the top cushion, but again, you don't really envisage them causing too much of a problem. An easy opener.
Yeah, and actually the ball that's probably the hardest, which is the one above the black, he's got the perfect angle to drop straight onto, so you can get things sorted out at this end of the table, and then I think the transition won't be too hard given the position on the red on the baulk line, so yeah, very hard to see a problem for him. It's been a few years since he won that world title. I mean, he's obviously been at the top of the game for a number of years now, but always nice once you've won a big title to follow up with a few more. He's had a few in the interim, but this will be, as you rightly say, one of his biggest achievements since then.
So he's got a little angle. Maybe would have just liked a little more just to be ideal. So.
Another one of those players with a very effortless cue action. He gets the power on very easily, although he has a deft touch for a big guy.
The thing with this clearance, he can't leave the ball on the left rail as his last. I think he needs to take that as early as possible.
Yeah, in an ideal world, if you've had a better angle, he'd have wanted to take that first and then get into these other ones at the top of the table. But yes, I agree with you. He's going to have to be quite careful.
He can use the one on the top cushion as his last ball, just to drift down. I mean, you know, he could leave the one on the side, but he just won't want to.
No, I mean, if he was sure he was going to be straight on it, it would be an easy positional shot to screw back. But if you got off straight with too much angle, you could get yourself into a mess.
Yeah, I think this is fine. Just doesn't want to be hampered. He is just slightly hampered. I think he can just get to the side of the ball.
Yeah, the fact he's got quite a big natural angle here is helpful because he doesn't need to inject any extra pace. The cue ball's naturally coming across into the middle of the table.
Yeah, can just drop it in.
Just looking at where he wants to leave the white to get back down for the black. This has been a hallmark of his last few matches. He's got off to a blisteringly fast start and had his opponent under significant pressure before they've had a chance to do anything. There was one moment this morning, one of the very few unforced errors he made in the first final this morning was he potted a yellow whilst trying to pot a red. Just been a nervous moment as he steadied the cue ball on that one in the middle of the table, but no problem this time. And the fast start is complete, 2-0 up. CLINT IANSON has just broken off. I think at least from Clint's point of view, isn't anything wrong, so nothing to be dwelling too much on, but this was already going to be an uphill struggle without giving Jack a 2-0 start. I think it's probably been a good thing for both players that this match was held over from last night. There was a bit of toing and froing last night. The schedule was running behind whether to try and squeeze it in at the end of play yesterday or whether to hold it over. I think one nice thing of holding it over is you can celebrate the fact you've got to it. When you're playing back to back to back all day, it's kind of all happened before you've had a moment to take it in. These players both deserve to receive the congratulations that they will have received from friends and family overnight and this morning.
Straight down the middle for Clint, choosing to have the cue ball just an inch behind the baulk line. I've seen many players put it right on the baulk line just to get maximum cue power. Sometimes lose a tiny bit of accuracy when you do that. I know that Chris Melling, when he did a little masterclass on breaking a couple of years ago, he was talking about getting that cue ball right down onto the bulk line so you can get the maximum energy through the ball.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that was Chris's advice. He plays with a very long bridge between hand and end of the cue, so you definitely want to give himself a space. That would have been an interesting masterclass to see, although I think a few people in the world could emulate a break quite the way he hits it.
Yeah, I think it still exists on YouTube actually. You could probably find it. I think it was called Chris Melling Break Masterclass, isn't it? We'll have a search of it later on and see if we can find it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in Chris's heyday in the early 2000s when he won those 2 world titles, he used to turn up with a massive break, and particularly as the WEPF World Championships semi-finals and finals are usually played on a larger table, that was an important ingredient of his success.
Clint's ran out of position here. Not what he was looking to do. He was looking to land on one of these on the side, and now he's left with a really horrible cut back into middle. I mean, he could play it off the red, and I think he probably will.
Does the yellow, I was going to say,
well, does it still go? I didn't think for, it does, obviously. I mean, I didn't think for the world that would pass that yellow. It didn't look like it.
No, he was lucky he was just far enough away from it that he could play that shot.
Yeah.
And still clearly a delicate shot to come, but at least immediate crisis averted.
I said he could play this yellow off the red, but actually when you look at it from this angle, the red is maybe just an inch further away from the pocket than would be comfortable. You just wonder whether that yellow will hit the knuckle. Might be one of those that you kind of hit the red half ball and punch it. But I think he can drop it in regardless. Oh, he's hit the knuckle.
Yeah, you can't hit the front knuckle with that kind of shot.
Got to say, didn't expect that.
No, it looked like he'd solved the problem when he was able to put that last ball, but that's a little bit careless. I mean, to be fair, it was a far more difficult shot than the camera angle looked. It wasn't a gimme, but every time you touch the front knuckle, you're in trouble.
What's your thoughts on any advantage that Jack may take from having played that final today? Obviously, Clint's not really been in action. I think he's probably played a couple of frames in the 3-man, but you know, Jack's already played on this arena table today. He already knows the formula to winning after beating Sean Chipperfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that gives him a slight edge in this. There perhaps wasn't much to choose between them absent that, but the fact he has had the experience and also won it. And it was a match where it looked like he was about to win very, very easily, and then Sean sneaked in for a couple of frames, and he did have to hold himself together and get the job done at the end, so he'll definitely derive confidence from that. But that said, I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing for Clint to have had a bit of a break. He's played a lot of pool on Friday and Saturday. It's been, as you say, the 3-man team's been going on. 2 rounds of that have been played this afternoon, so I imagine he's been in action in that, although that's a very different format from this one. It feels like we've seen this a few times from Jack. Like he starts off well in the matches, and then his opponents are sort of chasing the game and just end up giving him more opportunities. That's the advantage. When you get off to a good start, you just immediately have your opponent under some pressure, and sometimes that translates into even more of an advantage than you had already. It's very effortless the way he moves the white around the table. Both of these are players that try really hard. There's never any suggestion with either of them that getting a few frames behind they might give up, or if they're in a bad position in a frame they might not take it seriously. They're both quality winners who knows what is required to get the job done. And Jack does get the job done. Clint was in first in this frame, a frame that would have been very useful for him to win to establish a foothold in this match. So 3 frames in the books. All of them have gone the way of Jack Whelan so far. A bit more of a crowd starting to accumulate. This is a slightly funny sort of in-between time. The three-man team. The first 2 rounds have just been played, and there's now a gap there, effectively a dinner break in that before play resumes at 7:30. So I think a lot of players who've been in action all day have just stepped out of the venue or down to the bar and restaurant in the hotel to get an early dinner or a late lunch, depending on where they are in their days. I think we'll see a lot more people drifting into the venue as this match continues. There's also a singles tournament. There's a plate event for the first round losers in the 3-man team, which is commencing around about 5:30, so they're just taking entries for that at the moment. So there'll be a number of matches called out in the background. Meanwhile, normal service resumed from Mr. Whelan. Another powerful break, another ball potted. At first glance, another pretty favourable layout. Doing what he always does, and what indeed most people do after the break, just taking a few seconds to plan a route around the table before he starts potting the balls. He often has this look of maybe slight dissatisfaction with the position he ends up in, but I don't think you can read too much into that. I think he'll be happy enough with where these have finished up. Reds, you would assume, will be the order of the day, both because of where they're positioned and also because the black is protected by a couple of reds, so that would be the easier option. It's turned out quite nice, the fact that he's landed on what could have been the most difficult ball, this one that he's just potted there. He also landed it on in a way that he's got an angle to drop the other difficult ball, the one to the right of the black, into the middle pocket. So, what price? 4-0 in double quick time.
I mean, I'm not suggesting it's going to happen, but the bookmaker downstairs was offering prices on the scoreline, and I noticed that 8-0 was 100 to 1. I think if anyone had £10 on that, they'd be rubbing their hands at the moment. I don't think it's going to happen. I think,
no, I was going to say, I think they'll have a nervous few minutes to wait for that to come good.
Exactly, yeah, I think Clint's too good.
Yeah, and I think also the difference of pool compared with something like snooker, it's just your opponent is going to have a few of their own breaks, and you can play as well as you like, but they're going to have some goes. So I think the idea that Clint wouldn't get on the scoreboard would be unlikely. Although, I mean, this is pretty rampant form. Like a couple of dry breaks, and
I mean, if you had a tenner on it, your heart rate would be starting to increase about now, wouldn't it?
It's not just the pure scoreline, is it? It's the fact Jack, as he's looked all weekend, just doesn't look like missing a ball and doesn't look like having a dry break. I like the fact that he's still giving this very full focus. There's no suggestion that because he's slightly ahead that he's eased into this. Like, he's still studying every shot just as carefully as he would be if this was the beginning of the match. I think there's a lot of positives you can take from, well, in fact, both players' attitudes. They've both been great examples of how to conduct yourself in the course of a match.
Well, this is a feat that I don't think has ever been done before, and I find it hard to see it ever being done again. Somebody making their way through a field of 256 to win one event and be on the precipice of winning the next. He's 4-0 ahead. He has every chance. Well, we're just taking this break. I will just take a couple of seconds to indulge ourselves in talking about the sponsors. You can see them on the screen, but we'll just give them a quick shout out. As we did earlier, without these people, this event would not be possible. To All Stars, to Club 147, to Fishers in Crewe and Legends in Braintree, to Milton Keynes Sports Bar, to Off the Rails, to Racks in Maidenhead and Savannah. JJ Fall, I just saw him downstairs, his club, and to Spencer's in Yarmouth, Spots and Stripes in London, the Court in Peterborough, to On Board, who have produced all of these shirts that you see people wearing today, which I think are fantastic. And also to, of course, Jason Owen, who was the title sponsor for the open event. All of the people involved, the referees, the officials, and everyone who's made this event possible. to my mother and father, and yeah, and also to Supreme. The tables are absolutely fantastic. I think they look great in this grey colour, especially with the grey carpet behind. I think the whole arena looks fantastic.
We'll say, while you're giving this acceptance speech, Nick, embarrass you by saying what a great job you've done all weekend, and just how many hours you've put into commentary over what's been already a long weekend and it's still got a little way to run.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that.
Somebody whose weekend might not be lasting quite so long right now is CLINT IANSON. He's come up with another dry break at the moment he needed it the least. I mean, if he does go on to lose, and it would be very premature to suggest he will, I think him and Sean Chipperfield will be comparing notes later on about how badly both of them were breaking. That was the thing that cost Sean the match this morning.
Lovely shot to develop the black. Now everything has a pocket. It's still an awkward clearance with the ball on the right side rail. Yeah, I think he was probably trying to develop both at the same time there, but it's a decent second prize. As I say, still awkward because the natural pockets that these balls would land in, the yellow that's in bulk, I don't think passes into the top left. The yellow adjacent to the left centre doesn't pass into that middle bag, so he still needs to take a lot of care over this finish, but the way he's playing at the moment, it's just a different level. And the way he's played that, you've got to think that this yellow passes above that red, but for the world, it doesn't look like it does from this angle.
No, this is exactly the kind of shot where this camera angle is frequently deceptive. You can make yourself look silly by saying something doesn't go, and then the player smashes it in.
He's not got into that one. I think he was trying to get that through another 12 inches to play the yellow on the left side of the table, but got a B plan. This is a tough shot though. Oh my goodness, look at this.
Oh, that's a phenomenal shot. You can't say highly enough about that shot. That was a very difficult recovery, and he's played pinpoint position as well.
It was the kind of the pace he's played at. Normally you just want to play those at just a little bit firmer. He's almost played it as a drag shot. This is wonderful cueing from Jack Whelan.
And that was a better shot than it looked. It looked like he just rolled that in, but it was a little bit delicate with the position. He could have lost the white, so he had to just play the dead weight cannon into the red. One more good pot, and the frame will be his.
Wow, that's about as bad as it could have gone.
Okay, I'll adjust that. Two more good pots and the frame will be here. It's left the black more difficult than we thought he would.
This has gone from a formality to very missable. Just
no, not for this man.
This is incredible. Absolutely incredible. We are witnessing history being made here, ladies and gents, and I don't say that lightly. Just such a delicate shot. That's lovely.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at that on the TV and think, well, how difficult is it just to cut it straight down the cushion? But if you push it into the cushion at all, it doesn't drop. You've got to just keep it on line. Yeah, I mean, to your point about how unlikely it is to win both of these events, I mean, historically, it's not been done very much because the format has changed somewhat. It used to be that the main event was open to everybody, and then there was a sort of challenge open event, and then an event that some of the top players or some of the pros, depending on how it was categorized at the time, would enter. So it's not going to be many people that have had this opportunity. Well, Is this a collector's item? Has Jack Whelan actually come up dry on one of his breaks?
He actually looks shocked. The way he's been breaking this weekend, I think he probably has a right to be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, in a good way, he's been treated as an absolute entitlement to toss a ball off the break and then have a clearance. I mean, this is exactly what Clint needs. The last thing he wanted was another frame without having a shot.
I just saw Tony Blank down in the reception area when I went downstairs a second ago, and he asked me to give him a shout out, so I will do. Big shout out to Tony. He's one of the players over this weekend. Also, always see him at loads of different events. Great character. And while we're giving big shout outs, shout out to Ian Smith, whose birthday is today. He is actually 50 today, unbelievably 50 today, because I mean, you see his school photos and he had grey hair. It's I genuinely still don't believe it. He says he's 50, but I think I need to see his passport. But very many happy returns of the day today, the big 5-0. Hope you're having a great day. And furthermore, for shout-outs, a big shout-out to everybody watching this final. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday afternoon, early evening as we are now. You enjoyed your Sunday roast, and now watching this match between CLINT IANSON and Jack Whelan. What about this 8-0 now? That 100-1 is suddenly looking a massive price, and I guarantee no one had a single penny on it.
No, and I think that this is where it's going to get more annoying for Clint. There's one thing having a dry break. I mean, not that that was an easy shot. It needed to get started, and had the ball gone in, the Reds were at his mercy. But being at the table and missing, and then watching your opponent clear up is particularly frustrating.
I think you'd be sat there with a very smug look on your face if you'd have had any kind of bet on 8-0.
Yes, I mean, I'm not sure what the records are. I have occasionally seen them, but it's very rare. I can't think of any of the ones I've ever commentated on where the final's been anything like 8-0.
No.
They're always between informed players, so it's very unlikely that scoreline would arise.
And I genuinely still don't think it will be.
No, I agree.
It's amazing how they twist and turn. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Clint reel off 3 or 4 frames.
And make no mistake, Clint could win this. We're not talking about this because we're writing him off. We're talking about it because theoretically that is still on, and Jack has been on a tear, but Clint hasn't had many chances so far. The match could easily turn on its head.
Yeah, the problem for Clint now is that he's relying on Jack Whelan mistakes, and Jack has not. I mean, the mistakes he's made this weekend, you could probably count on a couple of hands. I mean, we've watched him in 3 or 4 matches on this table, and the form is incredible.
Yes, I mean, in terms of unforced errors, I can barely think of 1 or 2, and even those were moderately unlucky ones. He's just not been missing anything remotely routine. And sometimes that kind of consistency is a far more important thing than the odd spectacular finish. I mean, he's capable of that as well, but it's just the fact that he never misses is the thing that's leading to these big scorelines.
And just going back to the shout-outs, a big shout-out to Leon Segopa, who's been watching us all weekend on the YouTube channel from South Africa. Glad you've enjoyed the action.
Yeah, real hotbed of pool, South Africa. It's always nice to see the South African team come over as they have for so many years to the World Championships.
Has he missed a ball? I mean, did he miss a ball in the earlier final?
I think I'm not sure if he missed a ball. The only shot I can remember that went wrong was he potted one of Sean's balls whilst potting his own, so gave away the 2 visits. I don't
Yeah.
remember him missing a pot outright.
I don't think he's missed a ball in open play. Marianne Ward asking, why is this channel called Beard Productions? It's always been Beard Productions. It's because one of the reasons is we've all got a beard. Paul Moulding will be able to explain that to us, I'm sure. He's got a lovely bushy ginger beard. He's probably looked in the mirror one day and said, do you know what, that's as good as anything. George has got a beard. I've got an excuse for a beard. So it seemed like the right thing to do.
Well, I feel honoured to have been let in, the token guest without a beard.
Well, I can honestly say, Mark, if you don't turn up to the next event with a beard, then I don't think we can have you on commentary, to be honest.
I think it might take me until the next event to grow a beard. So, breaking off in frame 7, CLINT Anson really needs a ball. Well, he needed a ball, but not that one. Cue ball straight into the right-hand centre.
$100-1. 8-0. That was the price. With the bookmaker downstairs, 100-1. I looked at it just for a split second. I thought, no chance. Might as well burn the money. But how smug would you be?
Well, I'll tell you what, to get to that scoreline, he just needs to clear these up, which are well within his gift, and then break and dish off his own break, which is something he's done an awful lot of times this weekend. I mean, right now, I'm not even sure how disappointed Clint's going to be. I think just sitting there thinking, what on earth could I have done with it?
Yeah, I mean, what can he do differently? He's literally come up against a runaway train. This guy is just like running headfirst into a brick wall. I cannot remember. I've commentated on so much pool, and I cannot remember an outstanding performance like this. In fact, I was downstairs talking to Dave Fernandez, who got blown off the table last night against Jack Whelan in the semi-final. I think it was that 8-1, 7-1, and Joe Sison was talking. He said that he was watching that game. He said he doesn't think he's ever seen anybody play as well as Jack.
And you could see when Dave won that one frame, there was a tremendous cheer. It was the whole crowd could see how hard he was having to work. I mean, Jack was just a runaway train in that.
And do you know, the funny thing of all, it might be CLINT IANSON that's actually got the smug look on his face, because maybe he went across and had 20 quid on 8-0. And he's just about to take home more money than Jack is.
Well,
I jest, of course. Of course.
Obviously, he hasn't done that, but had he'd have probably thought he'd need to play a part in that scoreline. But frankly, he couldn't have done very much differently, even if he wanted to win. Never mind. We're joking, of course. There's no way in the world he would consider throwing a match, but like he's played no part in throwing this match. Jack has just cleared up every time. So 7 frames have been played, and with that black, Jack Whelan has won all 7 of them. CLINT IANSON now faces the almost unthinkable proposition that he's going to have to win all 8 of the remaining frames if he wants to lift this title. So he sits in his chair, who remains an impassive look, but deep down, hard not to respect Jack for this performance. Obviously, you desperately hope when you're sitting in the chair that the performance doesn't come against you, but frankly, it wouldn't have mattered who he was or what he did. I mean, if he's going to look back and wonder how he got to this scoreline, the only thing he could have done differently was to pot a ball off a couple more of his breaks. That's the only thing that's really let him down. That and one long ball that got away. Both players still looking very focused. Jack himself, as you would imagine, not celebrating early, sitting motionless in his chair as well. He knows that he's got to get the job done still. And he'd like, of course, to to win 8-0. I mean, it doesn't affect, you still get all the prize money, you still get the trophy if it's 8-0 or 8-7, but in terms of the dominance of this performance, could be about to do absolutely unthinkable and whitewash his opponent in a best of 15 final, something you precious ever see. It's unusual to see scorelines to 0 in the first round, and that can be when the players are quite mismatched. It's incredibly rare at this stage. But could there be one last twist in the tail for Clint? Jack has, for the second time in this match, come up dry off his break. I mean, I'm sure he's a little bit disappointed about that. It's obviously not likely to be hugely consequential to the outcome of the match, but would desperately like to have just continued that momentum and got the job done. So, well, in some ways under a lot of pressure, I suppose in some ways not under that much pressure at all from Clint, because he's not exactly expecting, and nor is anybody in the crowd, for him to come back from here. So it's just a chance to try and get some respectability, see what he can achieve. He's played a good opening shot. Obviously the yellow was quite close to the pocket. It wasn't a difficult pot, but having to cue over the ball as he was, somewhat hampered. That added to the degree of difficulty. And this is really the kind of opportunity he needs. These yellows are in a lovely position. Nothing to do in terms of cannoning the balls out. Can just let his arm go. I mean, hard to say whether he's feeling tense or not. He's not really played any shots so far that we can form an opinion of. It's going to be his break next. Every comeback has to start somewhere. If he can clear these balls up, then got the opportunity to clear in the next frame. Could start to get a few frames on his side of the scoreboard at least. And that's all you can do. You can take the frames one at a time. No point thinking about the bigger picture. He's got to win all the frames as it happens, but you can't rush it.
No, I mean, what can he do? He has to take heart in the fact that Jack's just won 7 in a row and he's going to have to return the favour. I mean,
he will have done that. Probably not against the player of Jack's quality, but I'm sure he's won some matches 8-0 in his career as well, so he knows it's possible. A shade short there. Just wanted to try and be as straight as possible on the yellow into the left-hand centre to hold immediate position for the other one. He's going to have to play a cannon now to hold position. Should be okay as long as he catches the red full ball. And they hit that perfectly. So still queuing well despite the scoreline. I'd be very relieved to see very routine position by his standards. Just got to drift this yellow down to the left-hand corner pocket and then the black there waiting for him.
Oh, no.
Oh, surely not.
Oh, dear.
I mean, you don't want to put words into a player's mouth, but you've surely got to say that that was down to pressure.
Yeah, you've got to feel for him. He's done so little wrong, and I mean, he won't and can't be disappointed. I mean, they're really good friends, these two, so, you know, he'll be pleased for Jack. He'll obviously be disappointed, but at the same time, you can only be stoic and say, well, I just didn't have the chances, and Jack just blew me off the table. Sometimes you just got to take your hat off to somebody.
Yeah, it is also, well, we're still looking at this frame, fair to say that there is still a little bit to do. There's sort of a plant of a fashion on the left-hand side of the table, but I don't think it's dead set, so it's not like we can write this off immediately. So you wouldn't imagine there'd be a problem potting it, but just needs to make sure the second red doesn't run away. Yeah, I was able to play it pretty gently as it happened, so I found the perfect position to play that from. So he just wants to leave himself an angle on the red on the baulk cushion to make sure he can get down to the other end of the table. Well, a few frames ago we were talking about that 8-0 scoreline, although it was a theoretical but highly unlikely possibility. It's not so unlikely now.
Amazing. Absolutely incredible. And we are watching a player who is at the very peak of his game. He's going to play the red off the yellow to clear the pocket. For the black in the same pocket. You will find it very difficult to look back through the history of pool and find somebody who's put in a better performance than Jack Whelan over this weekend. He has one more ball. This black.
Yes, although this is a trickier black than I was envisaging and believing.
It is awkward, but he's not missed the ball yet, so we'll prize him to make this one. There you know, that is unbelievable. A fist pump from Jack Whelan, and that is an absolute demolition. Well, that is just outstanding. I don't even know what to say. He's just got through 256 players twice, and he's won back-to-back events. That is, for me, making history.
You run out of superlatives to describe that performance. That is one of the all-time great performances we've seen in a tour final. I mean, his reaction says it all. He held himself together perfectly through the entire match. He showed not a glimmer of emotion up until that point, and then you could see it all coming out. For CLINT IANSON, a fantastic tournament and a fantastic run to the final, but ultimately there was nothing he could do with that. He could have won a couple of frames, but there was no way he was winning the match against an opponent in that form.
I'm going to go downstairs and catch a few words with Jack Whelan. Jack, I'm struggling to find the right words to put that into context, but I just had a conversation with someone, and they said to win one event in a field of 256 players is fantastic. To win back-to-back events in that same field is unbelievable. For me, which has created history there.
I don't know what to say, to be honest. That was perfect performance. I knew I had to be good against Clint, but he missed the ball in the second. First of all, actually, I want to say sorry to Clint for celebrating at the end. He's my mate, but
I don't think Clint's going to have any issues with that, mate.
It's just because when he got to the last frame and I didn't miss a ball all the way through, I thought, if I were to make one mistake, it would sort of like, even though 7-0 up, I'm probably going to win anyway. Yeah. But I wanted it to be a perfect performance, and that's why I celebrated when I potted the black.
Jack, I want to put some numbers around that. So, to win that 8-0, the bookie had it priced at 100 to 1. You were around 20 to 1 to win each event, which would have been around about 400 to 1. But there's no way that would have been 400 to 1. That, in my opinion, that's thousands to 1 to win back-to-back events. I mean, what does that mean in the context of your career? I know you've got the World Championship, but that is, as I said before, it's creating history.
Yeah, it's good, obviously, to win the event. I'm proud of myself, and especially world rules as well, because I don't play the rules, and I'm always having to think about little things, like even when you're breaking, I've got to remember to nominate all the time. It's little things that you don't normally have to do it when I'm playing my own rules, and I feel comfortable with it. But I'm really proud of myself to come through both fields, and there's some great players here, and I'm just overjoyed.
I think everyone's proud of you, mate. I'm absolutely made up for you, and obviously a new dad, and must be so settled in life. The prize money from the Jason Owen, £5,000 for that one. That's going to buy a lot of nappies.
Yeah, I was going to say then that keeps the nappies topped up, I suppose.
Look, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Neil Toms. Neil, I mean, we're here again, Neil. Let's just hear your thoughts on that. Just put that into context for us.
Well, to be honest, I can't believe the history of we playing a long time. I don't think anyone's ever done this in a weekend. I'm going to have to go back in the archives to look. To win an event like this, like in one weekend, it's unbelievable, especially Clint's a class player. Mm-hmm. But again, it obviously breaks, and you could do that to someone and someone's done it to you. But Jack, it's unbelievable. I'm so proud to run an event for you to win it, and obviously the players here that appreciate what I do. And politics don't come into it. You play different rule sets, you've had to adapt.
Yeah.
It's all about the players, in my opinion, and we're doing a good job.
You're Event 2 winner of the World Rules Pool Tour, Jack Whelan. What about that? That is amazing. So, you're winner. Jack Whelan, what an incredible performance. See you soon.